While Yin Yun was trying to stop the persistent Benlong, he kept on resisting and tried to get to our hero. However, when he saw the crossbow in Wu Sun's hands, he was surprised. He had already had the experience of meeting with people who were armed with such weapons. Last time he managed to get away, but he couldn't help but note that, like the cannon, it was a very dangerous weapon. At the same time, our hero pulled the trigger. The arrow immediately headed towards the black dragon at a great speed. The consequences of being hit by the arrow could be very sad even for the dragon. However, Benlong managed to dodge at the last moment, and the arrow only scratched him slightly. Enraged by this, he immediately rushed towards our hero, intending to tear him apart. Fortunately, just like last time, Yin Yun managed to hold him back. She shouted furiously for him to stay away from her father. The black dragon had an advantage over our dragoness. He was bigger, more massive, and stronger, so he had no problem pinning her to the ground. He was already tired of her constantly interfering with him, so he furiously asked if she didn't realize that he was helping her. However, Yin Yun had a completely different opinion on this matter. In her opinion, who Benlong should have helped was himself first and foremost. The black dragon realized that he couldn't prove anything to her. Besides, the strange flower could still shoot out again at any moment. He had to urgently get out of the crossbow's range. Letting go of Yin Yun, he immediately soared into the air. He didn't want to admit that he was afraid of the arrows, so he justified his behavior by saying that they, as true dragons, should fight in the air. However, Wu Sun couldn't fool him. Our hero immediately realized that he was simply afraid of his arrows. However, despite this seemingly cheap provocation, the dragoness took it as a challenge and immediately followed him. She was not going to retreat, even though it was rather foolish of her. Realizing this, our hero immediately started telling her to come down. Benlong had climbed very high, so he couldn't cover her with his crossbow. However, Yin Yun was already so engrossed that there was no stopping her. After slapping the black dragon, she angrily shouted that he should immediately go and apologize to her father. He didn't bother with her either, and struck her as well. He didn't intend to beat her up badly, but he felt that it was clearly worth it to teach the stupid girl a lesson. After the blow, Yin Yun's body was left with a rather noticeable bruise. Benlong was clearly stronger and thick-skinned than her. Here in the air, she was no match for him. She now realized how foolish she had been to be provoked. Besides, she was all alone now, and neither the thorny vines nor her father's arrows could reach that high. However, all of this problem could be easily solved. All she needed to do was to shoot down her opponent. Being hit, the black dragon began to fall. It wasn't agile enough to be able to regain its balance so quickly and take off. At the bottom, Wu Sun was already waiting for him with his crossbow at the ready. He was glad that his daughter was so smart and threw their opponent down. Benlong was in big trouble. Arrows flew straight at him, and it was very difficult to dodge in such a position. Our hero continued to shower him with a hail of arrows. Since his opponent wanted war, he was not going to retreat. But the black dragon was not so simple and was able to dodge Wu Sun's attacks. In the next instant, it rushed towards our hero, intending to finish him off once and for all. In his opinion, it was this strange flower that was the problem. And if he destroyed it, Yin Yun would no longer despise him. Wu Sun realized that the black dragon was truly angry and was serious. Therefore, without hesitation, he immediately released an arrow straight at that one's head. Benlong didn't dodge and simply blocked the arrow with his hand. Although it was painful, but his determination was paramount. In the end, Benlong was able to achieve his goal and was able to catch up with our hero. He grabbed the cannon he was sitting in and began to take to the air with it. He had only one intention, to kill this strange flower that was causing him so much trouble. Wu Sun realized that he had underestimated the black dragon. Things didn't go according to plan at all. Seeing our hero being carried away, the gecko rushed after him in a panic. Yin Yun didn't lag behind either and started chasing after the offender, screaming for him to let her father go. Benlong smirked to himself and said to himself that that was exactly what he planned to do. But falling from such a height meant only one thing: certain death. In the meantime, our hero had already regained consciousness and started to act. He was going to shoot the black dragon before it did anything. However, his plan was not destined to come true. The dragon suddenly let go of him, causing the arrow to miss its target. Once in the air, Wu Sun began to approach the ground very quickly. However, he was not going to say goodbye to the black dragon so easily. He wanted to survive and not crash, as well as deal with his offender. At the last moment, his thorny vines wrapped around the dragon's neck, preventing it from falling to the ground. That was not their only use, however. In the next instant, Benlong felt to his horror that the thorny vines had begun to tighten and strangle him. The black dragon howled in pain. He couldn't understand why so many thorny vines had suddenly appeared, which even his thick hide couldn't save him from. However, he quickly realized that the fault was once again that damn flower. Seeing the black dragon's annoyance, Wu Sun began to scoff. The latter should now know how strong he was and realize that if he provoked him, he would be in trouble. These words made Benlong even more angry. He started swinging his head around in an attempt to get the vines. Eventually, he managed to grab them with his sharp teeth. As expected, he had no trouble chewing them off. Once he was free of the vines, he thought it was all over and he had won. But he was very wrong. Our hero still had no intention of letting him go. He immediately reached for the dragon with the remaining vines. In the next moment, Benlong found that his leg was once again trapped in the vines. He even questioned whether our hero was a flower or an octopus with tentacles. But that didn't matter now, for the problem remained unsolved. The fact that he was being forcefully pulled to the ground did not go away. His desperate attempts to flap his small wings more often had little effect. At the same time, Yin Yun flew up to them and asked our hero in a panic if there was anything she could do to help him. Wu Sun, passing the pilot's test, replied for her to get out of here faster. Benlong, who was also in favor of this idea, shouted furiously for everyone to leave and not disturb him. With a swipe of his clawed paw, he instantly cut the vines. As he did so, our hero involuntarily began to fall to the ground. Now Benlong was sure that the flower would fall to the ground and shatter. Victory would surely be his. However, he still didn't know anything about our hero's abilities. Wu Sun wasn't confused and immediately began to heal himself using his magic roots. As always, the result was impressive. His injured thorny vines recovered almost instantly. However, it wasn't enough to survive. He was still one step away from crashing to death. Realizing this, he began to gather his vines together. As it turned out a moment later, his intention was to create a parachute. Wu Sun was proud that he was able to realize his idea. Besides, in this world, he was probably the first to create one. But it was not without its problems. Because the parachute was made of vines, it was full of holes. Although it slowed down the fall a bit, but the speed was still very high. Our hero prepared for the worst. In the next moment, there was a very loud explosion, indicating that the landing was not the softest. Yin Jun, who saw this, immediately cried out in panic, asking her father if he was all right. The hole in the ground after the impact was big. Although I would say it was very big. It felt like a meteorite had fallen there, not a flower in a cannon. However, despite all this, our hero was alive. This was the main thing, as any damage he could easily repair. Still, choosing the muzzle of the cannon as a cannon was the right decision. Even after falling from such a height, it was still intact. Seeing that her father was alive, the Draconess turned her attention to the culprit. Already in the next instant, something terrible appeared behind Benlong. Moreover, with a very strong desire to finish him off. Without delay, Yin Yun clawed at the nasty dragon's neck, screaming that it was revenge for her father. Unable to stay in the air any longer, they began to fall to the ground. However, only Benlong made a hard landing. Yin Yun literally threw him to the ground. It had been a long time since the black dragon had felt so bad. He was battered and crushed, and his bones felt as if they had been broken. However, things got even worse when a sword appeared in front of his face. Benlong howled in terror. He angrily shouted at our hero that he had no fighting ethics at all. However, what ethics could there be when talking about a flower fighting a dragon? Wu Sun didn't let the black dragon speak and gave it a small blow with his sword. It cried out painfully and fell silent. Putting the sword to the dragon's neck, Wu Sun coldly asked it if it really wanted to die. He wasn't going to be ceremonious with it after all, it had already caused them a lot of trouble. Benlong, on the other hand, had a look of horror on his face. He still couldn't believe he was just a flower. The cannons, the crossbow, the tentacles, the swords, it just didn't make sense. But it wasn't just the terrifying flower that posed a danger to him. Yin Yun was still very angry at him. Moreover, she was still planning to kill him. Benlong had long felt that he shouldn't have messed with these two. But at this moment, he regretted not running away when he had the chance. Now he was caught. There was no way out, with a terrifying armed flower on one side and an enraged dragon on the other. There was only one way out of this situation. I surrender. I am against violence. I'm for world peace. Let's say no to bloodshed. Even majestic and proud dragons sometimes had to admit defeat. His life was at stake, so Benlong decided he had to survive at all costs. Moments before the inevitable, our hero's sword stopped at the head of the frightened black dragon. Wu Sun was very angry. He told Benlong in a furious voice that he was the one who started the fight and was now asking for a truce. It was obvious to the black dragon that these two were still very angry with him. However, despite that, he was still alive. And that meant that he still had a chance. Smiling kindly, Benlong said that he had just decided to test their strength out of curiosity, and he actually had no intention of killing them. He also promised that he would give them food and water, and let them stay in this oasis for as long as they wanted. Hearing this, Wu Sun said that the one must have been talking about himself. There was indeed a lot of meat in it, and it would definitely make a great barbecue. Benlong immediately said in a panic that his skin was very thick and rough, and his meat was also unpalatable. Our hero said with a devilish smile on his face that it had yet to be tested. Benlong, who had had enough of these threats and insults, said irritably that there was no point in killing him, because they already had enough food. Seeing him angry, Wu Sun smilingly told him to relax as he just wanted to scare him. But afterwards, he added that he wouldn't get off that easy either. He had attacked them first, so now he would have to pay them compensation. Hearing this, the black dragon fell silent and looked away. It was as if he was pondering whether he should speak or not. Finally making up his mind, Benlong tearfully pointed to the bushes. He said that his backpack was there, containing many good things. If they found what they needed, they could take it as compensation. Our heroes were surprised at the dragon's cooperative nature. It didn't take much time to find the backpack. Even by Yin Yun's estimation, it was quite heavy. Wu Sun disdainfully asked why he was carrying such a huge and heavy backpack. After all, it was probably not easy for him to fly with it. The black dragon sincerely admitted that he didn't want to fly with something so heavy. However, there was no way he could not worry about his treasure while he was traveling. As the saying goes, don't put your eggs in one basket. That's why he decided to divide the treasure and took some of it with him. And even if someone steals it from him at home, he'll still have something left. Remembering a situation that had already happened to him in his past life, our hero noted that Benlong resembled his mother. At the same time, Yin Yun got tired of waiting. Without thinking for long, she turned the backpack upside down and poured all the contents onto the floor. Seeing this, the black dragon immediately panicked and shouted at her to be careful, as the treasures were everything to him. Everyone was surprised to see so many shiny gems. However, Wu Sun was the only one who truly understood their value. He recognized that the black dragon was indeed rich. Hearing the praise, Benlong proudly replied that this was only a tenth of all his treasures. Gold and jewelry was indeed a good thing, but our hero wondered why he needed all of them if they couldn't be eaten or dusted anyway, or even exchanged for money. In other words, it was just a bunch of shiny rocks. Hearing this, Benlong immediately became furious. Even though they weren't useful to him, he still considered them a treasure. He diligently saved and collected them, carefully wiped and played with them every day. That was why he couldn't let anyone disrespect them like that. While the black dragon was freaking out, Yin Yun noticed a scroll in the middle of the pile of gold that was clearly out of place. After seeing its contents, our hero concluded that it was a map. He also noted that it was rather primitively and ugly drawn. Upon hearing this, Benlong said that it was copied from one of his father's collections. Our hero asked if he had just taken this drawing and traveled with it. The black dragon proudly replied that the man was to be ambitious in every direction, travel thousands of miles and read many books. Furthermore, he wanted to travel to all the places on the map and search for treasures. Hearing this, Wu Sun remarked to himself that treasures were the real reason for the dragon. Without emphasizing this, our hero pointed to one of the marks on the map and asked if there really was a forest there. Benlong immediately replied that there was. It was called Taiku, and it was rich and extensive. According to the legends, it was considered to be the garden of the god himself. This god dwelt in the Pious Mountains, which were covered in ice and snow all year round, and were located to the east of the ancient forest. After some thought, our hero said to himself that it would be a great place to put down roots there. He still had many questions for the black dragon. The first was why the desert was shown as barren on the map, and why it was called the Wasteland of Oblivion. Benlong didn't have much knowledge about it, but he had heard that despite the barren land, there used to be large and bustling cities here. The dragon's words confirmed Wu Sun's guesses and observations. Something had indeed happened in the desert. Something that made entire cities disappear and deserted. But since there were no more clues, there was no point in thinking about it either. With his spirits lifted, our hero announced that he was taking a map and some gold coins as compensation. He had wanted the map for a long time, and Yin Yun could exchange the coins for something in the village by pretending to be human beforehand. Benlong, on the other hand, wasn't too happy that it was the card that was taken from him. In an attempt to get it back, he asked our hero why he needed it. He replied that they were going to the ancient forest. The black dragon immediately began to persuade them not to take it, as it was very important to him. In return, he offered to take more gold. Our heroes didn't agree with this at all, and reminded him that he was the one who told them to choose what they liked. It wasn't a problem for them to just kill him and take everything. Benlong immediately stopped resenting him. He said in a resigned voice that since he couldn't keep the map, he would like to travel with them. In his opinion, it wasn't like this strange flower had hypnotized the dragon girl. He assumed that he could have simply taken her as an adopted daughter and raised her. While he was pondering this, Wu Sun was alert. He had already seen the strange look in that dragon's eyes, and couldn't help but suspect that it was targeting Yin Yun. With a disdainful look at Benlong, our hero asked him why they would have brought along the guy who had attacked them not too long ago. He immediately assured that he was very strong and could help them if they encountered danger. He could also cook, wash dishes, clean, sew. In a word, he was very useful. Our heroes asked with a chuckle who had just asked them for mercy and was a coward. Realizing that his past skills were not convincing enough, he also added that he was very strong and could carry them on the road. Woosun disdainfully replied that the one was fat, not strong, and how could he trust him if he could drop him on the way? This was the last straw. Angry Benlong asked our hero why he looked down on him, and how he could let a girl carry a cannon all day. He also added that he wasn't going to stay with them forever. As soon as he found everything he needed and made himself a new map, he would leave.